Hello, I'm Steve Ryder and welcome back to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. We've had some fantastic action this past week, a dubious stewards inquiry, and then we'll have a look ahead to the Goodwood Festival. I'd like to be joined by a friend of the show, Tanya Stevenson, and making his Racing Weekly debut, George Baker. George, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, yeah. It's been a nice journey and lovely weather, so I'm delighted to be here. I've done my homework, watched loads of the shows previously, and it's pleasure to be here.
Good. It's a privilege for me to sit alongside a classic winning rider, but you've got a few different roles within racing at the moment. Obviously racing TV as well as you work with the Injured Jockeys Fund.
Yeah, so my main role is I'm head of jockey coaching for the jockey coaching programme, and I've been in that role for the last year, and it's about developing young talent. So every rider that gets a full licence now, apprentice licence or conditional licence, gets allocated a coach, and it's a bit more professional than it used to be, but it's a wonderful incentive, and we're sort of a mentoring scheme, bringing riders along. So I've got about 23 riders in my books at the moment, sort of in the Lambourne area. And that's my full-time job. And as you say, I do a bit for Racing TV, who've been very good since I had my accident, and probably do a handful of days a month for them. And I do some race planning work with Ed Walker, so I'm busy.
Yeah, very busy. And I think you've got a run coming up that with for charity, for Graham Lee.
Yeah, so obviously Graham had his life-changing accident at Newcastle, and I'm really good friends. Well, I was good friends with Graham in the weighing room, so I went up to see him in Middlesbrough, and it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen, to see someone who was so classy in how he conducted himself and such a proud person to be in that position, which is a big life-changing moment. His family have been amazing, and I'm just trying to do a small little thing for him, just to raise awareness really of what he's gone through and how much Injured Jockeys Fund have helped him. And it's all driven by our mutual friend Noel Hannity, who I work with Racing TV and got to know him really well. He's put on so much stuff, and he revved me up to do it. So it's an absolute pleasure to do it. The training's been interesting, and I've worked really hard at it. But it's not a natural thing for me to run now, but I'm really pleased to be able to do it. Yeah,
and I'll make sure that there's a link to the Just Giving page, obviously underneath the show on YouTube, and also in the link on SoundCloud and various other platforms. And Tanya, it's nice to have you alongside me again. This time of the year is brilliant because you get the 3-year-olds against the older horses and the form lines corresponding across. You were last on for the Derby review, where we obviously thought City of Troy would then kick on. The Eclipse kind of has a bit of mixed messages, as does the Sprinters. I was just wondering what your thoughts on the classic generation are currently.
Great that you said mixed messages. I was going to come and say mixed bag, really, because it's all dependent of the races they put in. We look to the entries ahead. City of Troy has got the international. We haven't yet seen economics to see just how good this generation is. I fear that it's going to be really, really good. Economics has got various entries as well. There's quite a lot going into both or either Jumpman or international. Ambient Friendly's been solid. Los Angeles, we sort of franked the Derby as well, ground out and has become an Irish Derby winner. The Euphrates has done well. Then you look at the fillies, you're a little bit gutted about Azalea being had the setback, but you've got some really good fillies. This is over the middle distances, of course. You mentioned that the Sprinters, that's a little bit different. We'll find out more, obviously, on Friday regarding Big Eves, regarding the Sprinters. And then when you look at the milers, your mouth is watering when you look at Wednesday coming up. But perhaps you mentioned going ahead as well, going on to France or going on to America. That might be a different matter. It's interesting, if you look at the international, it's stacked up at the top of the market with 3-year-olds. If you look at the Yorkshire Oaks, then Blue Stockings standing out there, courtesy of a brilliant run in the King George. Then you look towards the autumn, and I think this is something that everyone should sort of pay respect to, the strength of the French in every generation, whether it be 3-year-olds or older horses. Particularly as well, we'll see more about that hopefully later in the week with Sparkling Plenty, but just the French as a whole, because they head the market potentially for the Arc with their French Derby winner. But, I mean, I've wrote down some names of the French that we should we've got Caladagnan. We have Metropolitan, who was third to Rosallion, so that gives you further interwoven lines. The Sparkling Plenty line has Servi, who was second in the French Oaks, has won since. And then you've got Candala and Mosaic. So the 3-year-olds there are very, very strong. So yes, ours are okay, but now we really have got to measure up to the French. And I think they know that, France, and that's why we've seen quite a few potent raids by them.
Yeah.
So that's good. It's fantastic that we are going to see potent raids by them, because it adds the ingredient, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I think there might be a certain French horse that we start off in our first section, which is Racing Recap. So, George, there's only one place to start then, if we're looking at the review of what has just been Goliath with a giant killing performance in the King George.
Yeah, it was a massive performance from the Gelding, wasn't it? I thought he did everything right. He got the strong pace. Francis Henri Graffard said beforehand, his perfect setup is a strong pace, and he relaxes and gets into a great rhythm. I thought Christophe Soumillon was exceptionally good on him. The race was run at a strong pace, and there was a key moment rounding the bottom turn by the mile start there for the round course, where the pace was so strong, and he didn't rein back, but he just let them get on with it. Sort of took back a length and a half, and I thought that was the winner of the race, in my opinion. He was following the right horses. He wasn't too far up his ground, and when William Buick had to fight for room as a pace setter, went wide and dropped back, William had to sort of light his horse up. He was able to just slipstream that horse, and I felt that trip in behind Rebel's Romance was perfect, and he looked the real deal, didn't he? He was very, very impressive, and he was unextended. I don't think Christophe Soumillon used his whip behind the saddle at all. It was all hands and heels stuff, and I think the setup was perfect for him. On ratings going into the race, he had a little bit to find, but he stepped up, and his trainer is someone I admire greatly. His placement of his horses is exceptional, and he told us what he expected. I don't think he expected him to win like that, but he said his perfect setup, and it worked out ideally for him.
Yeah, you were always wondering how he'd be able to step forward from that Hardwick Stakes, second behind Isle of Jura, who George Scott must be kicking himself, obviously, with that horse's injury. But yeah, fast pace. Aidan O'Brien afterwards was a bit critical of the ground, but I myself thought it was more tactics that probably stretched the stamina of Auguste Rodin and Luxembourg, who, albeit they're Group 1 winners over a mile and a half, they might not be the strongest of stayers at that trip.
I think George mentioned that crucial move come around the bend, the far side, and the sort of pace that was injected into the race at that point. Now, you're going to adopt tactics, of course you are. They are going to assist yourselves, but it's certainly diverse, and there might be others in the race that it assists. And unfortunately for Aidan, those tactics assisted Goliath as well. And having watched him quite a few times again and again in that Hardwick, it would have been all easy if Isle of Jura turned up. But if you watch Goliath in the Hardwick, when he came round the final bend, he was sort of wandering all around and wouldn't let himself down to kick on. And I put him in my notes that maybe he just needs a little bit of more give in the ground to do that, or a faster pace. And obviously, Mr. Graffard mentioned that. But yeah, the tactics, I think, obviously in hindsight, that injection of pace was just that little bit too much. Just that little bit too much. And where Goliath was in relation, when you look, everything's easy with hindsight. When you look back to Auguste Rodin, Goliath was all running all over it. So I don't think, okay, he mentioned the ground, and that potentially, whether it was good soft or not, it might not have helped, but it wouldn't have mattered, I don't think. The way that the race was run, Goliath, he's well named. He's enormous, absolutely enormous, because it even was accentuated more when he raced against Isle of Jura. No offence to Isle of Jura, that's a little bit smaller than even the rivals in the King George. He is enormous, and maybe needs that pace to kind of kick him along. And he's exceptional, and it's a need perhaps that we need to have more respect to the French raiders. He had his eye in Graffard. He probably put his eye in when he saw the Hardwick, and I think, I know what race is ideal for him. I've watched previous King Georges. This will be ideal. I'll come back. because I know the strength of my opposition. I'll come back and fingers tightly crossed. And I thought Blue Stocking acquitted herself very, very well in that contest as well. She ran very well. But I'm really excited by Goliath, but I don't know where next.
Yeah. George, this Christophe Soumillon's second win in the race. I imagine Ross Orion would have liked to have been exactly where Christophe Soumillon was in that race, because Blue Stocking ran on well at the finish, and it probably did, albeit that the time said there was good to firm ground based on times. That slight ease in the ground and the fact that Goliath and Blue Stocking have both finished 1-2 might actually go for that. But what were your thoughts of the mare? She's now 7-4 with Bet365 for the Yorkshire Oaks.
I honestly believe that the ground was, when you look at the time, it was a good ground time.
Yeah.
And that the time always backs it up, doesn't it? I listen to people that are much more knowledgeable about it than me. I'm the time form guys. And I thought Ross Orion rode a really smart race on Blue Stocking because he just didn't get involved in that early pace and picked up the pieces. She is on the improve up. It's probably a career best from her, wasn't it? And Rafe Beckett is a very adept trainer with these types, and he's brought her along slowly. I thought a performance in Ireland to win from where she was positioned was exceptionally good, and I thought we saw her at her best with the cheek pieces on over the mile and a half. She looked smart, didn't she? But I think the horse to really up from his performance with Rebel's Romance, I thought he ran tremendous, because William had to fight for that room 4 furlongs from home with a strong pace on, and he probably put himself in the race a fraction too soon. I'd not for any minute thinking he'd have beaten Goliath, but I think he'd have potentially put it up to Blue Stocking. So Rebel's Romance, his first run back after a little bit of time off, wasn't it? After his sort of really strong early sort of season campaign. I think he's a very smart individual, and they're going to have a lot of fun going abroad with him.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he could be one that heads over to the satellite yard in America. Those sort of international races obviously have suited him in the past. Goliath, they have said obviously the Breeders' Cup turf would be an option. I just said to you before we started recording, the fact that he has Stringholt and the fiasco with a few non-runners based on the vets over there last year. He's 7-1 with Bet365 for the Breeders' Cup turf. I thought, as you said, with the slight ease in the ground, I thought something like the Champion Stakes might be up his street, albeit that Calandigan might well head there as well. Yeah,
I think in the aftermath of the race, he was so euphoric, Graffard, that he'd got this spot on. The horse needed the faster pace, and then afterwards, you almost see everyone, as we all do, we jump on and say, where next? I don't think Graffard was ready for where next yet. Yeah. He just wanted to take a breath. He wanted to acknowledge that he himself and Soumillon had got this right. Now let's think where next. Whereas we're excited, we can't wait. It's obviously Breeders' Cup, but I think after a nice deep breath and a nice pause, ideally would be coming back to Ascot again, because he'll be looking for a nice fast pace, and he's got so much talent oozing from that stable, Graffard. Now he can just sit back. We'll think Breeders' Cup, but I'm hoping he'll stay here, and he might well do.
Yeah, we'll then move on to the big handicap of the day, the Moat and Chandon International Stakes, where Northern Express steamed to success, Tans.
Yeah, it's lovely, wasn't it? Because he'd finished fourth in the race twice before. And even Simon Holt said in commentary, he said, oh, finally he's won a big one, which I thought was quite sweet. He'd run such a great race earlier in the season with Port Linus at York, and the pair of them, it was sad to see one lose, and in that effect it was Northern Express. And then you had to smile, because I think it was the following day Port Linus came out and won very, very easily. It showed it was great scenes. But yeah, he's a solid winner of the International, a good winner of the International. You can get some traction into the form. You can say, yes, that's a good race. What I was disappointed with, it's a maximum field of 29 and there were 18. But at least with that, you didn't get the, oh, that's hard luck because you were on that side or you were on that side. They came in a glut. But within that, we might see some future winners. It's a great race to watch, but it wasn't the International that we know and love. But I think we got a more quality race because of it.
Yeah, there was. I think Carry the One probably caught the eyes again, running on strongly at the finish. He does have an entry over a mile at Goodwood later this week, but I think he might fall into the same thing as Orazio, because they're staying on strongly at the end of a trip, like 6 furlongs. They give the impression that stepping up to 7 might suit, and obviously it just didn't quite happen. So it's going to be an interesting one with him going forward.
He's Mr. Unlucky, and I think the entry, is he in the mile, the Golden Mile? Most of these are, and that's dependent on draw normally, that race. The horse, a couple of horses I like to take out of it. First of all, New Image, because he's just a wonderful sort, and he's getting better and better and better, and I think he's much better than the rating that he is. He's just still learning, and he's a wily character. Beat him in Northern Express. However, the one that I thought an eye catch was Riot, who, yes, has had 57 races, I get that, and fully exposed. But I checked out the Golden Mile, and he can get in. And I'm thinking, is fate going to be kind of pull you out, draw 1 to 6? And if so, Riot will be a lovely price each way. I hope there's an extra place in there. You're going to tell me.
I'm sure there will be on the day.
That's if. I mean, David had 6 entries in it in 22. He's had 6 entries in the Golden Mile in 23. And I know New Image is there. New Image is a quality performer, and I think he might just be a black type performer in handicap. So we make the most of him now, because he won't be in handicaps for too long. Northern Express deserve that. Riot. Definitely sneaks into a handicap or a place in the first 5 or 6 coming up.
George, Tans describes Northern Express as a wily character. I think the first time Cheap Pieces probably helped him, as well as Paul Morellon, making all as really the only kind of confirmed front runner.
Yeah, I think getting into that rhythm, and he clicked along at perfect fractions. When you look at the sectionals on Sky Sports Racing, it was absolutely, he nailed it, didn't he? Got into a good rhythm. I thought New Image definitely. There'll be frustrations because he didn't do things right early doors. He's got to, if he actually dropped his head and relaxed, I would have thought he'd have probably given the winner a right race. He's only beaten the neck in the end. But I think Northern Express, you have to tip your cap to, because to win that off a mark of 102 is a big performance. To lug that weight and to roll along like he did do, he's a very genuine horse, and then I think the Cheap Pieces probably just had a positive effect.
Yeah, definitely. I did just check. Yeah, New Image 8 to 1 for the Golden Mile. So it's going to be interesting to see. Riot 66 to 1.
That's probably in part because he's always running style is a bit like the Carry the Ones, aren't they? Their running style are always going to be like that. So at Goodwood, that's then accentuated even more. But at 66, in the first six places, I've no doubt, or 5 places, it's worth the risk.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Next race we'll look at is the Princess Margaret Stakes, simmering. Ryan Moore brought her to the boil just in time.
Yes, Princess Margaret Stakes. It was, a really great performance in the respect that maidens had won that before, and it's a little bit like simmering. They'd come into the race having African Skies was one of them in 2008. The year before, Visit was a maiden coming into the race. So Visit had quite good form, one run, not as sort of concentrated as Simmering's form coming into that race. So it was nice that finally Simmering could get the win. However, the Princess Margaret is a race that you don't go on beyond 2-year-olds. I'm hoping Simmering's going to prove us wrong, because it's sort of very infrequently do they go on to become really, really quality 3-year-olds. But it means Simmering can kick on and maybe go and get some great black type. Betty Clover, I thought, what a wonderful horse for Eve Johnson Horton. Fantastic horse, and I thought that ran really well. And a bit of race riding there, trying to keep Ryan in, but good effort. The horse that I'm going to take out of it, other than Betty Clover, is Mandura, because I like watching Market Moves, and that was a big drifter. Big drifter. And that ran amazingly, in contrast to what the market was telling you. Maybe they didn't think the ground was right, maybe they didn't think that it could keep up the pace. But Mandura said, certainly stamped its authority to some respect, and was out in front of Simmering for quite some time. Yeah.
George, going back to Simmering, obviously first run in the Al-Shakab colours, obviously purchased privately but kept with Ollie Sangster. Ryan Moore, I thought, was brilliant on her. She's 14 to 1 Bet365 for the 1,000 guineas next year. Do you think going up in trip in future would be suiting her?
I don't. I think it was a very strong performance. I'm not sure about stepping on the trip. I think she's looked to me like she's got plenty of speed, and she only got up late because Ryan was sort of tight for room. It wasn't like he was riding a cold to finish off. I think it was just the way, as you say, it was a bit of race riding from the others, wasn't it, to keep her in. I thought it was a strong performance. Ollie Sangster's impressed me with his early years of training and his placement of his horses, and his 2-year-olds seemed to click along and improve. Too Darn Hot has been a revelation, hasn't he? So he's got some good kit. But I just like her. I thought it was a job done to win with her, wasn't it? To go in that as a maiden, such strong form to get the win in Group Company is a big deal.
Yeah, obviously it boosted the form of the Albany fairy godmother, who obviously performed miracles to win that day. It's actually been cut in the market for the 1,000 guineas next year, now into 11-2. We'll touch on her stablemate later on in Racing Recap, who also shortened over the weekend. George, I'll come to you for the Valiant Stakes. Friendly Soul, it was nice to see Kieran Schumacher kind of ride that big winner for John Gosden.
Yeah, it's been a difficult run, isn't it? I.e. Getting a nice winner for John and Thady Gosden. I thought Kieran nailed it, and he got to the front, set his fractions perfectly. I was really impressed with how he clicked through the gears, and he didn't go for everything. It was a nice progressive pickup, and I know Kieran really well, and he's kept his head extremely well through a difficult period of time. He's been questioned a lot, and he's got a massive week upcoming at Goodwood, which we're going to chat about. But I'm just delighted that he's got that monkey off his back as such. To get his first group winner for the Connections is great. And she looked smart, didn't she? I think they've always held her in the highest regard. She had a bit of a blip, didn't she, at York, where things didn't go right. But she looked very tractable at Ascot and did everything in the right fashion. So they look like they've got a nice filly on their hands to go to war with for the rest of the year. Yeah,
there was a couple of interesting interviews pre and post race with John Gosden with Matt Chapman, and said kind of pre-race that she hung right out towards the stables at York, and then post-race, and when Matt asked about targets, well, it was going to be the Diane, but obviously we've had to back off. So no real kind of target set in stone for where she'll end up. But it was nice to see her back, because like George said, some of that form, the Pretty Polly success, marked her out as a smart individual going forward.
She reminded me so much of Journey.
Went on to win the filly and mares, didn't she? She
reminded, in the running style, as George said, the fractions were brilliant by Kira, but also the fact that you were comfortable turning for home. If you were on Friendly Soul, like you were in the days of Journey, you felt comfortable turning for home, and as it proved, Kieran, there never looked any dangers. She just kept going further and further clear. You know, and you think, well, there's a dilemma for John. What does he do now? Because he's come back from York and sort of avoided France, obvious reasons, and now, goodness me, now he's got a quandary, because he's dropped her to a lower class, as it were, and I mean, I'd go up a little bit in trip again, because she's certainly taken care of her rivals there. Yeah. It was kind of if you were a 1,500 metre runner, it was a race against the clock rather than a race against your rivals.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though that they didn't know that at the time, it was brilliant to watch.
Yeah. A race against the clock certainly wasn't what the York Stakes was, though, George. Obviously, there was only 4 runners. All had a chance, and I don't think particularly any of them were suited by the fact that it was a crawl in the early stages.
No, I felt I was covering it for Racing TV in the studio, and it was unsatisfactory, wasn't it? It was so messy. And the key moment of the race was early doors. They were doing 26, 27 miles an hour, and Callum Shepherd did not want to be in front, did he?
No.
And I don't think we saw any of the horses seen to best effect because of the setup. Jim Crowley was brilliant off the home bend when he flanked up the inside of Richard Kingscote on Passenger and nicked his posse as such. A wonderful bit of race riding from Jim Crowley, which meant when the pace developed, literally as they straightened up for home, Jim was in position A, and Passenger lost that length amount of ground, but also lost a little bit of momentum because he had to sort of sit and wait and then come out over heels as such. And obviously, it's gutting to hear Passenger's got injured.
Yeah.
But thankfully, it sounds like the surgery went well, and he might be around next season. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, condylar fracture. Apparently, come out of surgery well, and you think straight off when you hear about an injury like that it might be career-ending. But we'll obviously see if he can return next year. There's plenty of nice prospects though. I did like King's Gambit going into the race, and I don't think he lost anything in defeat. But Alf Layla, there was no fluke around it, was there?
No, he's won the race before, so tick that off, come into the race having run well at Royal Ascot anyway, so that kind of boosts the Royal Ascot form, so you've just got the interwoven lines off of that. And no, that's no fluke, because it shows you that Our Failer just knows how to inject a little bit of acceleration. I think they're good horses that just, I mean, they needed a few more. You needed if anything, you needed a pacemaker in that race. Which would have made it fairer for all, but you didn't get it. And you got Our Failer winning, and we'll see where it goes next. I suppose it's thinking of going back to York again.
Yeah, I've just loaded the Juddmonte International odds. Yeah, City of Troy evens, Ambiente Friendly 7-1, Economics 8-1, Calandigan 10-1, White Birch 10-1, Our Failer 12-1. So, yeah.
By a process of elimination, I suppose you could say that Our Failer's 12 is value because the others aren't guaranteed to be there. And so at this stage, certainly value. Looking at them, you'd love to see White Birch come back at some point, but you'd think it wouldn't come to York at the moment. Mind you, it ran really well
in the Dante.
In the Dante.
On really fast round that year, didn't it?
But at that stage, if you look at it with sort of clearly, and you just work out in your head, will that actually go, or where could that go instead? The 12 seems big. Yeah,
King's Gambit, for what it's worth, is 25-1. I don't think he lost a lot in defeat. Actually fought back at the finish as well.
Yeah, I just feel like he had a very hard race, and if King's Gambit was mine now, I'd be thinking about not going straight into Group 1 company. I think I'd probably go and win a race, get things back on track, and then dip my toe in the water for the higher class races later in the year. Harry Charlton was frustrated after Ascot because, in my opinion, he's probably the best horse in the race, and he just, for whatever reason, didn't go early doors and was in a poor position and did extremely well to finish as close as he did. And I felt Saturday was a step forward, but there's a good horse in there, and I think they're just going to probably mind him. And I would feel that if you went to the Juddmonte after that, it would be a big shout to be. You're probably going there to be placed, and I think the bigger picture is to really give him a good profile. So if they could win with him again, and then look for bigger, maybe even going abroad with him. Do you know what I mean? Later on in the year, I think there's lots of fun targets to be had with them.
Yeah, definitely. We saw some really good performances from the 2-year-olds over the weekend in particular. I'll come to you. Obviously, Bedtime Story is probably the highlight and the most high profile. She's now into 5-2 for the 1,000 guineas and 8-1 for the Oaks next year. But you also had some really good debutantes, formal, ruling court as well. Was there anything else that kind of caught your eye over the past week?
I really liked the Charlie Appleby horse at Sandown.
Yeah.
I thought he did everything wrong early doors.
Yeah.
And the way he warmed into the race off the home bend, and William sort of lit him up to go and get his position because he was out of his ground and in a poor position, and he got there in half a furlong, and he was almost in front too long.
Yeah.
But he learnt plenty, and in my opinion, to be able to do that at Sandown and then still hit the line really strongly is a pretty smart performance. So I think he's very, very exciting, and they've got some good kit, Charlie Appleby, this year, 2-year-old wise, and it would not be a massive surprise to me if he's top of the pile.
Yeah, it was the Age of Truth that won the superlative stage. Ruling Court, yeah. So it was just eye-watering that it sent off 4-9 on debut, and what looked a relatively deep field, now 10-1 favourite with Bet365 for the 2,000 guineas, obviously cost a hell of a lot of money, I think 2.3 million euros after a breeze. So, yeah, a good performance, and we might have seen a star.
Yeah, might well have seen a star. Can I be left field?
Can
I be totally left field with a star I think we've seen? York, Elsa's Ruin, Gemma Tutty and Joanna Mason. Praetorian was short price for that. And the expectation when Holly Doyle hit the front on Praetorian had no choice, because those at that point all around had disappeared behind. But Elsa's Ruin, goodness me, where did that come from? And then sometimes you think fluke, but it was ahead between that and Praetorian, 5 lengths back to the third and a further 5 lengths back. So I'm really excited for Gemma and all the team, and really excited to see where that one goes next. We're not obviously talking, potentially not talking classics as yet, but what an absolute joy because you don't normally get bad horses winning at York, do you? And that also, I think, came down the unfavoured side as well, Elsa's Ruin. So there was a lot to like about that. Obviously, we'll see where that goes from.
Yeah, Elsa's Ruin then, well worth putting into your tracker. Yeah,
it was I love the acceleration.
Yeah. As is formal, impressive maiden winner at Newbury on Thursday. Now 25 to 1 for the 1,000 guineas. Obviously, extremely well bred. Dubawi out of Voracious, who won the Falmouth Stakes, like really caught your eye. If you missed that, well worth going back and having a look at.
She looked like it just looked so powerful. It looked like a 3-year-old when you saw it travelling along, and I think the commentator thought that it was going to come under pressure at a certain point. It just kept going, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was just almost as if they were going down to the start. That's how exciting Formal was for me.
An extremely impressive debut win in those Cheveley Park colours. I want to touch on Al Qudra, obviously then beat Chancellor, who was obviously well regarded. Is that a race that you have an opinion on? Would you give Chancellor another go next time?
I don't think we saw Chancellor to best effect. Travelled well under Robert Haven, and it was just messy. He was looking for room, wasn't he, from quite a way out? Yeah. And where did he make his debut? He won at Doncaster, didn't he? Yeah. And it looked very, very impressive. I think we'll probably see a better model next time. Yeah. It's always difficult second start, isn't it, when you're jumping into upgrading company and you do things so easily first time, you don't really learn that much. So I definitely think that horse is maybe one to follow next time, and it'd probably be a nice enough price wherever they go. Yeah,
and William Buick was at pains to use his horse's experience as well, and set the fractions from in front.
Well, I thought
he finished fifth in the Coventry Stakes.
Yeah, but I thought William, what do you do when a race has got messy set up all over it, and you've got a horse with experience? The easiest thing to do is make the run in, and he just nailed it, didn't he? He sort of dictated. He got no pressure, and it was very smooth from the front end. And you've seen they all came and had a go at him, but he burnt them all off, and I thought he was very strong at the line. So, again, Charlie Appleby looks to have some nice 2-year-old kit, doesn't he, this year, which is exciting for those prospects going classic way next year as such. Yeah.
Anything else that caught your eye that you want to touch on before we?
No, I thought the name escapes me now. John and Thady Gosden's winner, Friendly Soul. That's it. She was impressive, and I just get the vibe hearing the team talk about it afterwards. They think she's very special, and I know it was a stepping stone to better things, but I think they've probably got a Group 1 filly on their hands.
Yeah, definitely. Tans, same to you?
With the aforementioned, love them all. Another one that I'd like to throw in from a recap is Kendall Roy. We may or may not see Kendall Roy at Goodwood. The trainer was keen to say that at this point she doesn't know, but it was really impressive at Cork. He's very, very, very quick. We've already seen him over here before, and he could be useful if he does come over here to Goodwood, because can you imagine him going down? He's like a take cover, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's wonderful to watch, and he beat the stable companion, and I just hope she takes her chance. If not, we possibly might see him later in the season here.
Yeah. Just one last one from me. Marquis de Sevigné won the Prix Rothschild for the second year in a row. Andre Fabre talking about going to the Arc, which will be interesting. Has only raced over a mile and 10 furlongs. Stepping up to a mile and a half is obviously be a question mark, but she's 16 to 1 with Bet365. And that brings to a close Racing Recap. Before we get into our Goodwood preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 AM on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full terms and conditions can be found on the website. Right, arguably the highlight of the whole week for me is going to be the Sussex Stakes. It's the first race that we'll cover, obviously, on the Wednesday. Rosallion currently heads the market at 10 to 11 with Bet365. Henry Longfellow 7 to 2. The 2,000 guineas winner, notable speech 4 to 1. Factor Cheval, Maljoom and Sonny Liston, obviously for the older horses. George, this is probably going to turn into a tactical race. We expect Ryan Moore to probably ride from the front. But as an ex-jockey, ex-classic winning jockey, is there anything that they need to kind of take into account at Goodwood?
Well, obviously Goodwood is, it can be a very messy track. So if you're drawn well and you ride for, you take your cover. You obviously need a little bit of luck. I need to check, but sometimes Ed has a false rail out a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see how the track's laid out. But for me, the key thing is you just want to make things as smooth as possible. I said before we came on air, I learnt a lot from watching Richard Hughes ride there. He was a master at Goodwood, and he just make things very smooth. And what I mean by that is, when you turn in there, if you're poking and looking for a run and put yourself on heels and it doesn't open up, you end up having to take back, switch round, and you lose a lot of momentum. So I think in a small runner Sussex race, which has Messi all over it, I think it's going to suit a horse with a big turn of foot, and everyone assumes that Ryan Moore will make the running on Henry Longfellow. Will he definitely do that? I'd say he'll have a plan in regards to making it as messy as possible for everyone else. But I would have thought with Henry Longfellow to be seen to best effect, going steady and sprinting will not see him to best advantage. So I'd imagine he'll go an even gallop and potentially not rush to pick up, just do it gradually and click through the gears, which is the best way to ride Goodwood from a front runner's perspective. The ground is drying. I looked this morning, and I'd imagine we're going to have nice, good ground for the first day, and it's going to be a fair running surface for everyone. So I just think it's a very competitive race. You can make a case for nearly all of the field, can't you? But Notable Speech, who's a horse I absolutely loved through the early season when he was running at Kempton on the weather, and that last performance when he showed that turn of foot, and William Buick was riding him to teach him, kept him covered up, and came with that one burst to win. And the finishing speed percentages that day were just exceptional from him. And then he backed it up when winning the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket. For whatever reason, we didn't see him to best effect at Ascot, did we? And I've heard the argument that everything went perfectly from at Newmarket, but I watched a replay when I was on the train coming here today, and he was just one row further back than Rosallion, who, albeit probably travelled quite freshly and may well have been better for the run. But I just think Notable Speech is a rocket, and I've got a funny feeling we might see him back on track at Goodwood.
Yeah, at times you don't normally get 4-1 about a 2,000 guineas winner in a Sussex, do you?
No, not often at all. And I sort of kept watching him at Ascot, and he was travelling so well, coming around into the final turn. And when William Arst put the foot down on the accelerator pedal, there seemed to be no acceleration. So something I feel was up, rather than he is that horse. He's certainly not that horse. He's a horse that William was expecting at that point. When he asked him, off we go, and there was nothing there. Might be plenty different. Goodwood. No, it's not often, but it is such a mouth-watering race. We haven't got into Rosallion yet. 7 runs, 5 wins, 3 of those Group 1s. He comes into the form now. As it happens, in recent times, Irish 2,000 guineas winners have the better sort of record into this contest, but they don't often meet. Since 1991, the Irish and the 2,000 guineas winner, I think, have only met twice in this very race. So it's not an occurrence we see often, so it's fabulous to see it on this occasion. I'm going to step back from all 3 of the 3-year-olds, and I'm going to go to France again. And Factor Cheval's been here before. Okay, at Ascot, I watched what unravelled in the Queen Anne, like, what is going on? But in the end, if you look at it sensibly and calmly, he only got beaten 8 lengths for that disaster, Factor Cheval. If you now rewind it back, he'd come fresh out of winning a Group 1 in Maidan. Last year, he ran in this very race, totally different because the heavens had opened and they came down the stand side. I sense to some degree they were riding it, expecting Paddington to win it by a mile, and then in effect that he reduced the gap Factor Cheval to 1.25 lengths, and that shows you acceleration, albeit in a different surface. And then if you watch him also behind Big Rock when Big Rock was at his pomp at Ascot, he was the only one to go after him, and the acceleration again, albeit miles behind, really caught the eye. And if it is going to be a race where they are going to be tactically cat and mouse, Maxime Guillon aboard, he's won it on solo. He's not as if he hasn't ridden Goodwood before, and he will know what to expect. He'll know how to ride Factor Cheval at Goodwood as well, albeit having ridden there before. And he's a big price. But then, as George says, they can all win this race. We haven't mentioned Maldoom either, who I think Fate owes him one. He owes him one. He's a lovely, lovely horse, and why not run him in this race? He ran on really strongly in the Queen Anne. He was unlucky a couple of years ago not to pick up a Royal Ascot prize. He's been blighted by injury, and it's lovely to see him just in the lineup as well. I have to pay homage to Rosallion. I think that if Factor Cheval is going to find a horse hard to pick up, it'll be him. Maxime wouldn't want to give him too much of a lead, I think. But then you marry up the generations. You're Paddington versus Rosallion. And Rosallion's trying to do what Kingman did. I know people will refer to what Paddington did, but Paddington squeezed in an eclipse, whereas Kingman didn't squeeze in an eclipse. He did that, so he's trying to do that. But whatever else, it's just a fantastic. I can't wait. I cannot wait. And it's kind of one of those races that you're expecting to be proved wrong, but you're trying to play the value. And I'm doing that with Factor Cheval and hoping that was just, I can put a line through that Ascot run.
Yeah, like you said, many people concentrating on the 3-year-olds, but yeah, Factor Cheval currently available at 12 to 1 with Bet365. Maldoom also interesting, obviously
Yes.
first time headgear, so whether that will help him travel in the early stages will also be.
Yeah, I just looked there on Race and Admin to see there's a cutaway at the furlong and a half marker for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then it goes back to the 3.5 on, and then it's full track open from Friday onwards. So I think that's going to make the race even more interesting because you've got that furlong and a half period where it's going to open up. So I think, if anything, that if you're holding up, it's going to open up at some stage. So there's not going to be a mad rush off the home bend, which is, I think, even sets up for a better race, in my opinion.
Definitely, yeah, and that probably aid both Rosallion and Notable Speech, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think William won't have to be in a massive panic, as neither will Sean, because they know at that stage, if Ryan is making the running or whoever makes the running, it's up to them whether they switch over to the inside rail or stay straight. But you're going to get your run at some stage, which I think is quite a nice thing to happen at Goodwood, because when it's not there and later on in the week, Friday and Saturday, it's going to make life very much more difficult from a jockey's perspective.
Yeah.
These are horses, George. They're all wonderfully uncomplicated, aren't they? On watching these, we watch, and this doesn't have to have this or that. These absolute treat, this race, because you haven't got, if only you had a pacemaker here or there. You haven't. It's off you go, all of you. Crack on.
Work out who the best horse is.
Yeah.
The only thing I just wanted to flag, Rosallion's in 6, stall 6,
Right.
and he needs to relax because he wants to. Sean Levy makes him look easy, but he's a proper free-going type, and the key thing for him is to get cover and a backside to follow. And once he gets that, then he's manageable. But if he's on the wing and keen, that's going to impact his chances. So early doors, it's going to be important for Sean to get that bit of cover. And I think if they ride him more forward and he doesn't get that, it could be messy for him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a similar sort of scenario, I think, in the Irish Guineas, wasn't it? He ended up having to go back to get cover. You'd imagine they'll ride 2 by 2.
Well, that would be the dream, but all I'd know is if I was on anything and the opportunity comes where I'm going to let Sean Levy in, that's not going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of...
Jockeys getting their elbows out.
Exactly, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Thankfully, we haven't got Sumi on in this race. We'll then go back a race to the 2-year-olds, the Molecombe Stakes. Big Evs won this last year. Mick Appleby has a runner with Mr. Lightside, currently 7 to 1 with Bet365. But it's Asterius that heads the market, Tarns, at 5 to 2. Watnan Racing have won lots and lots of these 2-year-old races. Won a couple at Royal Ascot. How are you looking at going for the Molecombe Stakes?
Well, I've looked at it in a way through It Ain't Two to start with, who Asterius beat It Ain't Two. But Celadine, albeit had the right side, was coming down the right side at the July course and the July Stakes, easily accounted for It Ain't Two. I don't know whether you work it out just so simple. But I think obviously Celadine has subsequently come out at Chantilly, but these are going to really, really fly. So Mr. Lightside is in the right position here. I'd be more worried about is it Vingregard, the horse that was second in the Super Sprint. Ollie did everything right there, and then unfortunately they just all fell across the line together, and it happened to go to the excellent K-Burn. Vingregard appears to me that would be better suited to a Goodwood. If that had been on the downhill of Goodwood, and he seems better suited in the fact that it didn't matter where you'd be drawn. So he sort of produces himself from about a furlong and a half, 2 furlongs out, and he's got some excellent power. He appeals because I feel as though he'd have enough pace to sit behind Mr. Lightside, who you sense without question, watching that run. That run at Nottingham just didn't come back. That was, but now we're stepping up a level. We are really, but even so, he won so comfortably. I think it surprised Alison Rawlinson. It just such a brilliant perfection of speed, and the key also Usdi Arthi, I think you pronounce it, for Donica O'Brien. That's deceptive in its pace, and it's really determined, really got so much tenacity, really, really strong. So I think you can find some value outside the top of the market as the way that they're framing it. They're framing it on style and grace with the horses that have already proved themselves in top class, whereas this is going to be pure speed. And that's where you go with Mr. Lightside. I think Vingegaard will just sit in behind, and if he's not quick enough, it won't go there. And Uster Athi is just burly strength and power, and kind of already at 2 is like a bully of a horse. So I'd be more to step back, and I'd be against the Asterius. So I appreciate they keep winning these 2-year-old races, but you really do need electrifying speed at Goodwood. There's no rain forecast at the moment at the place.
So Tan's looking away from the favourite. Are you doing similar?
Yeah, I thought it was a good performance at Sandown, and he's very straightforward, isn't he? He's got pace, and I don't think the track's going to be too much of a concern. Celandine, who's a filly I know really well, she's a little rocket, and her performance to win at Newmarket, she just burnt them off. And after that race, I spoke to her on the way home in the car, and I was like, for me, she's a Malcolm filly. And she obviously went to France and ran great there, but I think on slightly tighter ground, going back to 5 furlongs, I'm only slight concern she's in 1, but my viewpoint was, when we were talking about it yesterday, when the draw came through, is she's very straightforward, she can race on her own, and I think just stay away from all that. There's going to be a bit of a hustle and bustle the other side, so she can race straight up, hopefully the ground's good, and I think she's going to be very competitive and hard to beat. She's officially rated 101 as Asterius is, and I don't think there's much between them. So I was at Nottingham when Mr. Lightside won, and he's got lots of natural ability. He's a big frame of a horse who's still slightly unfurnished, and I just get the vibe that everything he's doing is, they're expecting it, but it's still a bit of a shock, and I just think he's very smart. But you can make a case for a few of them. Yes. I thought Simon A. Crisford's Soldier's Heart, who won here 40 days ago at Goodwood over the 5 furlongs, just did it so smoothly. I mean, it was a very winnable race that day, but again, he could be anything, couldn't he? So I'm going to be biased and go with Ed Walker's runner, but because I think there's really sharp 5 furlongs there, she's a natural speedster, and I think we'll see it to good effect.
Yeah, currently 6-1 with Bet365. So yeah, if she wins this, then yeah, George can take all the credit for his race planning with that filly. We'll then move on to Thursday's action. We're currently recording Tuesday morning, hence why we've obviously avoided the Tuesday action by the time you're getting the chance to watch this. And we'll go for the Richmond Stakes. Another Wathnan Racing 2-year-old currently heads the market. It's the recent acquisition of the Striking Viking, who interestingly moved from Kevin Ryan to Hamad Al Jahani at Newmarket. Originally, Wathnan kind of kept all of their horses with the original trainers, but they've recently moved a couple. I spotted Midnight Gun has also left
So
Ed
I think
Walker.
with that, what they've done is at Goodwood, because they were buying them so close to the meeting, it definitely works better to keep them with the trainers they are rather than the week before.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've got to be in the yard for a certain period of time before they can run for them, and that preparation is key, isn't it, going up to Royal Ascot? So, but
So, for example, Midnight Gun left Ed Walker. How long ago will that have been?
that was a while back. So
Right.
he's been in Newmarket for a little while to acclimatise there, and obviously done the same with the Striking Viking. So I think what their model after Ascot is to buy horses to support their trainer in Newmarket, and he looks a good buy, doesn't he? You know, he's a proper speedster. He's done everything right today. I thought the run in Ireland was really, really encouraging, and it looks a good fit, doesn't it, for him? I think it's an interesting race in regards to, I thought, Tropical Storm, who's still a maiden, but that run at Ascot behind Shareholder was so encouraging, wasn't it? And I heard Oisin Murphy being interviewed about him the other day, and he was like oozing about how well he's going. So I think it's a strong race. Billboard Star I just love what Eve Johnson-Hutton's done with the 2-year-olds this year. She's been amazing, and she plays them. She's not scared to run them, and he's a proper toughie, isn't he, Billboard Star? So I think you can make a strong case for all of them. I just thought Billboard Star was a really strong each-way value at 7-1, and he's officially rated 104. So he's kind of been slightly overlooked. Tropical Storm's 101, and the Striking Viking has run to a high level. Actually hasn't got official rating at the moment, but I think Billboard Star represents the value at 7-1 for me.
Excellent. George taking on the Striking Viking at the top of the market, then currently 11-8 with Bet365. Where are you going with this, Tans?
I'm agreeing with George. Mainly looking at Billboard Star's form. If you go back to the 27th of June, it beat a horse called Praetorian, who ran really well at York coming up, but was beaten by a horse that I think we're all going to love in the future, called Elsie's Ruin, of Gemma Tutty. We are going to love that horse. And I don't want that to take anything away from Praetorian, but it just shows you how much speed Praetorian has, because it took it up a fair way out at York. And then Billboard Star, I mean, you look at what it did last time out, it took on Whistle Jacket and did take it on. And went for the race, went to win the race. And that's where George was saying it's wonderful to see what Eve's doing with the horses. Billboard thought, right, this is my race, I'm going to win it. Not worrying at all the hype and what Whistle Jacket has done. And in the end, I think what counted against it, perhaps the race wasn't run quick enough for Billboard Star, but it ran up the hill really well, and I thought came again. It's still totally green, Billboard Star, so it has to be, as George said, each way value. Interesting though, you mentioned that Oisin Murphy's on Tropical Storm. He rode the Wacko Kid last time out. Nice jockey on the Wacko Kid this time. Wow. Brian's got the Wacko Kid. So looking from afar, the one this time that might come through and beat Billboard Star. The Wacko Kid travelled so brilliantly at Newbury. That might be the issue. But lovely horse, Billboard Star, and fingers tightly crossed for Eve and Charlie.
Yeah, I will just throw in another one. I was really taken with the debut win of Aparaggio. Clive Cox has won this in 2019, 2020 with Golden Horde and Supremacy. Both of those have broken their maidens at Windsor. It's a track that Clive Cox really likes targeting. He beat an odds-on favourite that day on his debut. Yeah, I thought he was quite a big price at 12-1.
Yeah, I think it's a. All I do is if I was at Goodwood and I'm going there to watch racing, I'd go down to the paddock to see how they're dealing with stuff, because I know a lot of these horses have been to the big festival meetings, but Goodwood's have tweaked to everything else. They have to get boxed up from the stable yard, and then it's a lot going on in a very small environment at Goodwood, and the build up to the race is important, and you've got to keep your head. So I've ridden some very good 2-year-olds at Goodwood that have lost their head beforehand. So it's just identify how they're dealing with preliminaries and see if that's in line with what they've done before.
Yeah, definitely. Nice bit of advice then from George. Next race we'll look at is the Gordon Stakes, and this is cut up a little bit with the declarations just coming in. There's only 5 runners, but it does look a competitive contest. The market's headed by Jan Bruegel, currently 11-10. Obviously unbeaten Aidan O'Brien colt, big horse, well worth looking at in the parade ring if you are there. Bellum Justum second favourite at 7-2. Sayadati Sadati, who ran so well in the Derby, 4-1, Maidan 7-1, and then Align the Stars, currently outsider at 12-1. George, Jan Bruegel, big hype horse, kind of a ledger horse down the track, you'd imagine. Will he have enough speed for this?
I think so. Then I don't think their chances are on. They're dealing with a high-class individual, but I think this is a deep race, and David Simcott's new recruit, Sayadati Sadati, is obviously being brought with Australia in mind, and he's of interest. I thought has a really good run in the Derby. He was only beaten 7.5 lengths in that race. Bellum Justin of Andrews again has been consistent and running to a relatively high level. I thought it just didn't go very smoothly for him in the Derby. Wasn't to best effect, but Ascot was a good run behind JRB. But I like Maidani of Simon A. Crisford's. He won over the mile mile 3 at Goodwood in a listed race, and he travelled beautifully on that occasion. Harry Davis rode him that time, and they stepped him up a trip at Royal Ascot, and I just don't think he stayed. So he is, I don't know what price have you got him?
7-1.
7-1 at the moment, and I noticed that unfortunately for Harry Davis, he's been jocked off. They've booked Tom Marquand now, so again, I think that's a statement of intent, isn't it, from the owners? And I think if you see him as a physical, he looks the real deal, this horse. And Simon A. Crisford's team have really warmed into the year. And he was running consistently well, but it clicked right at Goodwood, and he was given a good tactical ride that day when Harry Davis sort of nicked it. And I just don't think he stayed behind at Royal Ascot last time. So I think he represents a bit of value, and I just love him as a profile. I think he's going to be a really sort of smart end-of-season horse.
Yeah, it's a real shame for the yard. Obviously, this week we had the news that Van Diekel missed the Prix Maurice de Geest, who was obviously kind of their headline horse. But yeah, hopefully Maidan might provide them a nice winner at Goodwood. Tarns?
Align the Stars.
Yeah, the outsider of the lot.
The outsider of the lot.
All the big prizes this weekend.
That's what I look forward to at Goodwood, the possibility of how these races will be run, and it's probably really left field and really naive of me for saying Align the Stars. It had a couple of opportunities to run here at Goodwood, one of them being in a handicap. We last saw Align the Stars the day that it was awkward to go around the bends at Haydock, and Align the Stars for me, and looking at the lineup here, having watched Jan Bruegel, he is enormous. Align the Stars could indeed make the race, but I think Joe Fanning's on board Align the Stars, and he will go from the front here. I worry about Bellum Justin, a lovely quality horse. I worry that the mile and a half might be just that too far if Align the Stars really takes it out hard. But Bellum Justin, I thought, ran excellent at the Derby. Sayadati, really looking forward to see what that does, because, as you mentioned, ran well in the Derby, but Align the Stars, I think, will just every furlong, Joe, will wind it up, because for him, this is their kind of pinnacle, their group race, as it were. The others, like the Jan Bruegel, we really respect, and how good that is, or potentially it's going to be. Align the Stars could be enormous value first too. Maybe do forecast with Jan Bruegel, but Align the Stars, yeah. It would just be interesting to see. You can relax a little bit more. Keep an eye out, obviously, on the weather forecast, but I think he'll try and make all on this. The Johnson had a superb record at Goodwood, and I think this is, seeing how the entries came in, this wasn't a last minute when the decks came through. Bang. We're going for this. We're not going to go for the handicap. We're going to go for this. We'll see how we are and then move on next race.
Yeah, the Gordon Stakes cut up slightly, but the Nassau Stakes, all bar 2 declared for this. It looks a real high-class renewal this year. Opera Singer currently heads the market at 6-4 with Bet365. The 3-year-old obviously stepping up in trip for the first time. Emily Upjohn second in at 7-4. Obviously the form slightly boosted by Blue Stocking in the King George at the weekend. And then Sparkling Plenty next in at 8-1. Obviously cost, bought back for 8.1 million. Subsequently part sold to Al-Shakab, will run in their silks, I think, for the first time. Yeah, a really good race. El Malka as well. Don't forget about the 1,000 guineas winner stepping up in trip. George, who would you be with in this?
Well, I thought Opera Singer's form is being boosted, isn't it? Paul de Fortuna's backed up that really good performance when winning at Royal Ascot, when being so impressive at the July track recently. And the vibe about her that day at Ascot I don't think they could believe she was ever going to get beaten. It was just really strong, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she obviously built on a very encouraging run at the Curragh behind Fallen Angel, when you just got the impression that she wasn't quite Aidan O'Brien ready.
Yeah.
She was ready to have her first outing, but they thought she stepped forward for that, where she ran tremendous. And I just believe she's a really, really deep Group 1 performer. And that form behind Portaventura is strong, isn't it? Portaventura went to the July track and absolutely pulverised them there. So she deserves to be favourite, and I think she's going to be very hard to beat. I thought Emily Upjohn's run in Ireland was encouraging, and it was a sign she's back on track, but I just still don't believe she's quite the filly that we've once seen. And it was a good run, wasn't it? And
Excellent.
obviously Blue Stockings backed that form up for sure, but I'm just not sure we're dealing with the same Emily Upjohn we once have done.
Yeah, it's interesting if you look at the ratings. Opera Singer's only rated £2 inferior to Emily Upjohn, but obviously Weight for Age in this gets an £8 allowance from her. So on ratings, if you then weight adjusted ratings, obviously then Opera Singer should really take care of her. It's interesting as well. Aidan O'Brien won this in 2016 and 17 with high class 3-year-olds. Minding and Winter both won this, and Opera Singer kind of has a similar sort of profile.
It definitely does. I'm absolutely gutted that Purple Lily didn't declare for this, because I was sitting, when I saw that Paddy had entered, I thought, here we go, because this would be the ideal trip. But understandably, perhaps for a youngster that's 3 years old, maybe it's come too soon. He feels after the Irish Oaks. Well, with that in mind, though, we're looking forward to Purple Lily when she does turn up. But this would have potentially been ideal. We have to really look at Opera Singer because of that run behind Fallen Angel. Purple Lily was 5th in that race. Opera Singer was 3rd. And then, as George has said, has come out and run brilliantly against Portaventura, who has then gone and beat Alila Roller at Newmarket in the Falmouth. So it just shows you the strength of the form in that respect. And Opera Singer got in a rare old battle with Portaventura. If there is a danger, I'll go to France again. It's interesting that we see Sparkling Plenty here. The form is strong. So, if you look at in the Prix de Diane, you beat Seville, who's subsequently come out and won. The one issue maybe with Sparkling Plenty, if there is no further rain, or if there is no rain, then that will be I would think.
I wonder whether they'll run her if it's really tight ground.
Yes, I don't think they will.
I'd imagine Goodwood do an amazing job to provide a great surface, but she's obviously, as we're aware, she's very valuable.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I just don't think if there's a little bit of rain around, isn't there? There's some sort of localised thunderstorms, and I think if they don't get that, I wonder whether she'll run.
Yeah.
That's why I went against her, because I just think she's been really effective on a bit of juice in the ground. And we haven't really seen her on tighter surface, so it's hard to get a gauge of whether she could go on it or not. But I'd imagine if they're concerned about it, they won't run her.
But it'd been rude not to enter
Yeah.
and see
Oh,
if the weather came. If the weather doesn't come, it's Opera Singers though, isn't it? The prowess of Opera Singer is sufficient here. No value, no big prices. This one.
No.
I do think it's the favourite. This one.
Yeah, I think it says it all. Yeah, we're looking at some at bigger prices, and we're all kind of having a look at the favourite currently. So, so Opera Singer to win the Nassau Stakes. Next race we'll look at is on the Friday, the King George Qatar Stakes. I found it really interesting that they've supplemented Jassur for this. Both Jamie Lynch and myself a couple of weeks ago said about him the possibility of dropping back to 5 furlongs. Obviously, we can't see if he's going to be declared in a hood or not, but that 5 furlongs and that burst of speed and the fast pace that can be expected with the likes of Big Evs in here should really suit him.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Big Evs at his best on this track. I just felt a stiff 5 furlongs at Ascot. He just got worn down by a wonderfully tactical ride from Oisin Murphy on the Australian filly.
Yeah.
And I just think this is going to be set up for Big Evs to be seen to his best effect. And I can't really look elsewhere. I thought Believing was brilliant in Ireland.
Yeah.
She's very straightforward, but again, because she won that, she gets a penalty, which is going to make life more difficult. And I just went through it when I was going through this race yesterday evening. For example, I love Starlust, and I think there's a big one in Starlust, but I watched that replay back 2 or 3 times from Ascot, and I think Big Ev's slick 5 furlongs on what we hope is going to be a slick track will be seen to good effect, and I think this is him back on track as such.
Yeah, I thought Starlust, I thought the Nunthorpe will probably be that. Obviously showing good form at York. I thought that might be the more logical long-term target for him.
Yeah, I think he again, with his ownership, they love having runners at Goodwood. Yeah. But I think the Nunthorpe, he's going to be probably a good, really solid each way bet in that race.
Yeah, and just a couple of weeks ago as well, we had Richard Hoyles on. He was big on Democracy Dilemma. I know he's been declared for a handicap on the Tuesday, but yeah, I think it was quite significant that he's also got an entry in this group race. It's currently 33 to 1, so I thought I'd give a shout to him. Tarns, we haven't really discussed Asfura as of yet. Obviously, Royal Ascot winner, Henry Dwyer, has been brilliant with the media, obviously, since he's come over here as well.
Yeah, totally brilliant coming over here, first of all, and running in the Temple Stakes. That was a mark of kind of genius behind Caduce, because he didn't run bad. No. If you watch it again, it was a superb run. It was kind of the acclimatising run, and at one point you felt had a chance of coming through and winning, and you think, oh, it would be a perfect arrival.
She probably wasn't suited by the rain that day as well. The ground at Ascot, I think, was probably a contributing factor to that.
Then at Ascot, as George has already mentioned, Big Eves. I think Tom's now got totally the full story with Big Eves. He was able to settle him at York, and then at Ascot he was a little bit unlucky, I felt, in the fact that they all knew Big Eves was in the race and let's all sit back. And whereas here he doesn't have to be the target, even though he may well be and may choose to be, he doesn't have to be. And this is a brilliant renewal in the race. You've got Live the Dream in the race and Big E. So the automatically assumption is the pair of them will shoot off in front, and Asfura or others will sit behind and come through. Now, Asfura is probably is trying to emulate the likes of Hortenza, who did exactly came to Goodwood and won lovely at Goodwood, and then moved on to the next target. Asfura's got every chance of doing that again, and I think is rightly at the head of the market, because she's sort of, we all believe the way that the race is going to be run, but I'm like George, I like Big Eves because it is Goodwood. In not running this again at Ascot, this is Goodwood, so it will suit Big Eves more, and Tom can get a gauge, just a feel beforehand to think, right, how I ride this race. I feel it's a little bit unlucky and unfair to Jason Hart. He's on Live the Dream, and there is this expectation perhaps that he might go full speed ahead on that horse, and he's got to, well, has to, he's got to produce a run from somehow. It's not like you've got here a take cover or an ornate that just flies out and job done. This is more tactically than we think, this contest, and I'm keen to see what Big Eves will do this time around. I believe in, he's got the penalty, Jasur, that's fair play, putting the Reddies up to come into this race to step down, but that shows a statement of intent. The run behind Inisherin, as much as anything, and obviously the July Cup, dropping down in trip will show, but I mean, Clive knows his sprinters more than anything, and he's obviously keen to come here, and he's obviously advised. But on Big Eves, I think Mick Appleby's got a massive chance here.
Yeah, so Big Evs, 7-2. We bet at 365 for both George and Tarns. Jasur for me at 7-1. I think this race will really suit going down in trip. I'm then going to group the two handicaps together, the Golden Mile and the Stewards Cup. I want a double from both. I'm joking.
Yeah, I do that. Each way double.
Tarns, I'll come to you first, obviously, for the big handicaps at the meeting, on possibly just horses that you've obviously got an idea of. Obviously, we haven't at this stage
I'll be sensible.
Got the ground, got the draw, or the makeup of the races.
Right. Well, we'll go with 3 in the Golden Mile to keep an eye on. First of all, New Image, who was potentially might come here, might not. Was brilliant in the International on Saturday. Is a classy horse. I sense they might come here and then they might step up into a bit of black type. Riot, I felt, was really unlucky in the International, but yeah, it's fully exposed. But sometimes when you're drawn right, the key is here. I know last year was one from stall 18 with a bit of wizardry riding, but generally you look to the lower numbers for this. So that's why I'm picking out 2 or 3. So Riot, New Image, and Toy My Son. With David Minutier, they all 3 should get a run in the Golden Mile, and for different reasons, like New Image's total class Riot, I thought was unlucky in the International, and Toy My Son has been running really, really well. And if you want the Stewards Cup, I've only got 2 for you in this race, only 2. Rumstar, who unseated its rider in this very race last year out of the stalls. Johnny Portman's had a fantastic year, hasn't he? Rumstar, I think. He's a class conveyance in the Stewards Cup all over again. He sometimes throws in a bad one, so that doesn't bother me. He's a little bit of character, and that's what you need. You need a bit of character, a little bit of mischief in you, a little bit of cheek in the Stewards Cup. But the real one that you want to take out of it is number 28 on the list, and there's 28 maximum, is Mr. Goodwood, which is Dream Composer. He was brilliant, won the dash, and he subsequently had a couple of races at Ascot, but he is Mr. Goodwood. I think he's had something like 9 races there and a couple of wins, couple of seconds, couple of thirds. And he hasn't got to face his friend, Fair Wind, who I think runs earlier in the week at Goodwood. But Dream Composer will be very hard to push him out the frame in the Stewards Cup, so I'll go with him. And good luck to the draw, which they get with Dream Composer. I'm sure he'll be in the premises late on because he seems to carry his rating with pride, no matter whether the handicapper edges him up 1 or 2 pounds. He carries it well, certainly on tracks like Epsom and Goodwood. So there are his tracks. So there you go. Dream Composer, Rumstar and the Stewards, Riot, Toy My Son and New Image in the Golden Mile.
Perfect. Yeah, we touched on the likes of Riot. Obviously, we touched on prices earlier on, about 66 to 1. Yeah. Prices for your Stewards Cup fancies: Rumstar 33 to 1, and Dream Composer 25 to 1. Any of that rain that might be about towards the end of the week would obviously boost Dream Composer's chances as well. George, for you.
So I think in the Golden Mile, Perotto is outstanding value at 10 to 1 at the moment. I think. Have you got it at 10 to 1? When I did it yesterday, it was I think about a 10 to 1 chance.
Bear with me. Perotto, 8 to 1.
8 to 1. I thought that run at Sandown behind Cicero's Gift, who I think is a top-notch performer of Charlie Hills's, travelled very strongly at that day, and the 2 runs this year have been really, really strong for the Roger Varian team. Yeah. And I just think if you can travel strongly at Goodwood in those big handicaps, it makes life so much easier. He's got a turn of foot. I thought he sort of hit the front under Ryan Moore and then just got worn down late on at Sandown. So I think he'll be seen to really good effect on the turning track here at Goodwood. And he runs off the same mark. He's run off 102 again. So I think I know it's still a big ask, but I think he's got a really serious chance. And in the, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think I fancy Apollo 1 in the Stewards Cup.
Yeah.
Really good run last year, a few pounds higher, and this year he's pretty versatile when it comes to ground and so forth. I thought he ran well behind Makarova at Sandown, over probably an inadequate 5 furlongs last time, and I hope that was a stepping stone to this. And he's again a strong travelling type. He's quite often placed in these races and doesn't win, so he's probably just a solid each way bet in this race as well.
Yeah, don't mind solid each way bets when they're 20 to 1 with Bet365. Apollo 1 then for George in the Stewards Cup. I'm going to quickly head over to both of you for anything else over the meeting. Tans, I'll come to you first.
Thursday, I've seen the decks and Kendall Roy has been entered for the 4:45 on Thursday. I think he's got Ryan Moore on board as well. He's was a really, really great winner at Cork. Both him and his stable companion were second, pulled clear of the remainder. So for him, Kendall Roy Goodwood. Be great to see him have a go. And on Saturday in the 225, a horse that doesn't like getting beat and loves Goodwood, Mr. Freedom, is entered. Again, he was brilliant the other day. The expectation wasn't there again, and he just defied edging up in the handicap, and he keeps battling away, and he's a testament to the trainers. So Saturday 225, Mr. Freedom, and I should think he will declare, you know, because he's just that kind of got that robust constitution, hasn't he?
Yeah. George, anything you're keeping an eye on for?
I'm going to be really boring, just really highlight. I think Celandine's got a great chance in the 5 furlong sprint there. I think the Malcolm's tailor-made for her. She's a proper speedster, and I think she'll be seen to really good effect on what, fingers crossed, is going to be sort of nice tight ground, and she'll be seen to good effect. I think she can back up that really strong run in France last time and build on that listed victory at Newmarket the time before.
Excellent. I think I might have a feeling who George's best bet might be. But after that, we'll have a quick message from Bet365. Before we get into our best bets of the meeting, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. Terms and conditions apply. Tanya, I'm going to come to you first for your best bet of the whole Goodwood meeting.
Dream Composer in the Stewards Cup, because soon as he was in the dash, I thought, all right, next race I hope for you will be Stewards Cup. He was brilliant in the dash. Joe Lee was excellent aboard him, and he just loves Goodwood. That is the key. If you're not just skimming group class, you have to have that Goodwood CV behind you, and he's the ultimate for that.
Yeah, currently available at 25 to 1 with Bet365 at the time of recording. George?
So it's a 3 o'clock in the Malcolm Stakes at Goodwood. I really think Celandine's strong form to date, and I think the slick 5 furlongs at Goodwood is going to really see it to better effect. I think she can step forward from what we've seen over the 6 furlongs.
Yeah, love it. 6 to 1 with Bet365. I'm going to go into the easiest race of the lot, and it's the Stewards Cup. I'm going to be taking on Tarns. I think Pura Sangway is a brilliant price, 8 to 1. 3-year-olds actually have quite a good record in this. They won 3 of the last 9 renewals, including when Andrew Baldwin won this with Dancing Star in 2016. He actually runs here from £4 well in at the weights because of his good run in the Group 3, the charge at Sandown, when he was only beaten 3/4 of a length that day. Yeah, it's guaranteed a run. I'm sure he's going to be running well. So Pura Sangway for me in the Stewards Cup. Right, thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by Oddschecker in association with Bet365. A huge thank you to both George and Tanya for joining me. As always, if you liked what you've heard or watched in this episode or any of our previous episodes, then please leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comment section on YouTube, where obviously there will be a link to the Just Giving page for George's run. We'll now have a short break during the Olympics, and we'll be back for a York Ebor preview in the company of Gary O'Brien. Thank you very much.